Hey, what's up? This is the Convo for Monday, February 27th, 2023. NJ in LDN, and the man, the myth, the magic, Michael P. Augello in BUF NY. Another big trade from the Maple Leafs. We were going on all day on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/the Leafs Convo, about Luke Schenn being a part of the Maple Leafs. I said, book it. People made their comments. And it still may come to pass that Mr. Schenn returns to the place where he started his NHL career. But for now, we'll have to settle for Jake McCabe and Sam Lafferty. McCabe and Lafferty to Toronto. To Chicago, you have a conditional first-round pick in 2025, a second-round selection in 2026, along with Joey Anderson and Pavel Gogolev. We can say some words of wisdom and a little in memoriam for Anderson and Gogolev, but let's get excited about the prospects of McCabe and Lafferty integrating themselves into a Maple Leaf lineup that needs more defense, more toughness. Mr. Augello, we told the masses that we'd do a show sooner rather than later, and here we are. Good evening.
Yeah, sooner being 24 hours later. So this is, it's not unexpected because we said that Kyle Dubas was going to make a trade for another defenseman, or for a defenseman, excuse me. But I didn't think it was going to be McCabe because he had term on his contract and it was going to require a first-round pick. Now, teams are now extending into 2025 and 2026. It's getting like the NBA. I thought there was a limit in terms of 3 years out. So, I guess teams are going to do that. And even though Kyle Dubas said in his media availability in Seattle today that it wasn't a reaction to the Tampa deal, it was a reaction to the Tampa deal. He said he was working on this deal before Boston made the trade for Dmitry Orlov and for Hathaway, and that may be so. He may have been having conversations with Kyle Davidson about this trade. But I'm sorry, you cannot tell me that the specter of Tanner Jeannot being added to the Tampa Bay Lightning and then basically giving up an entire draft, a 1 through 5, over the next few years, didn't have an effect on the Leafs, because I think they looked at that and the specter of the bottom 6 of being Jeannot, Maroon, Perry, Belmar, Ross Colton. You just keep going on, and that's not even including the top guys in that lineup like Stamkos and Kucherov and all those fantastic players. Kyle Dubas basically had to say, all right, I have to go all in because I need to solidify my bottom 6 and solidify my defense. And this is the thing. And I saw that comment.
Luke, I don't distract you.
No, it's okay. It was going where I wanted to go. Luke Schenn is a bottom pairing guy, no doubt. But Luke Schenn is a physical defenseman. Jake McCabe has been a top 4 defenseman since he played for Buffalo.
Right.
My concern about Jake McCabe, and I've expressed this a number of times, is that he has had 3 significant injuries in his career: ACL, shoulder, and cervical spine, which he had.
If you took the guys who weren't banged up versus the guys who have been banged up, it's 50-50. You're limiting yourself to half of the league.
But the thing is, it's the perfect replacement for Jake Muzzin, because Jake Muzzin got hurt all the time. So and that's not a criticism on Muzzin. These are the type of defense, they block shots, they get hurt. It sucks. But is he a good defenseman? Yes. Is he a top 4 defenseman? Yes. Is he a defenseman that the Leafs need? Well, that's what Kyle Dubas believes. We'll see. when I saw him in Buffalo, I thought he was pretty good, but that was before he had a lot of marks on him. Now, he's 20. I think he's 29 years old. He's a left shot defenseman. He probably, he's going to slot in the top 4, but whether they're going to put him with, TJ Brody or put him with Liljegren, or, he's going to play the left side. They have some flexibility with Brody being able to play on the right side. So we'll see how Sheldon Keefe plugs him in. As for Lafferty, he's having a career year. He's signed for another year. So this is sort of like the Brandon Hagel deal that Chicago and Tampa made last year. Chicago got players and first-round picks, and Tampa Bay got term. They got Hagel at less than $2 million for, I think, another 2 years. Here they have term on McCabe for 2 more years, Lafferty for another year. So these are not trading draft picks for rentals. Whether it gets them over the hump, we'll have to wait until the middle of April to find out.
Naughty 88 in the comments section. And this is for those who listen to the Leafs Convo on podcasts who don't get the visual. Mike and I are just effervescent. Look at us. Unbelievable. Scruffy old bastards talking about the Maple Leafs.
Effervescent.
Yeah, you've saved yourself quite a bit of angst and ginned up animosity by looking at our two disgruntled old faces by just getting the audio of this. But we do have a live chat happening right now. Naughty 88, settle for McCabe, he says. He's a billion times better than Schenn. Just so emphatic. And Mr. Naughty 88, Jeannot is not worth 6 pieces, not at all. Jeannot, like,
Whatever.
Naughty 88, you're not making the deals. And that's the thing. Like, nobody's worth anything. I'm sorry. Nobody's worth anything. But you know, these guys who make the deals have different things in mind than you do with your spreadsheet.
Yeah,
okay?
well,
They want to win a fucking Stanley Cup, Naughty 88.
Well,
Who cares about your math?
This
Who
is the
cares?
This is the thing. Jeannot, he scored 24 goals last year. This year, I think he has 5. So he's not having the year that he had last year.
Right.
He was in the mix until probably February or early March for Rookie of the Year.
Right.
He's he's making $800,000. This is where, Tampa has, they have the ability. They have all their players, all their homegrown guys locked up on long-term deals, Sorelli and Sergachev and their core guys, and they can play around with draft picks, and they find diamonds in the rough deep in the draft, like Perbix, who is they traded for Cernak. They get those players. They make those types of deals. Jeannot is a freight train. He's 6'2", 204. He hits like crazy. And though, like I said, when you add him to the guys who are already on that bottom 6, I mean, I think Kyle Dubas just had to respond simply because he knew that his team would get run out of the rink physically. Now, I'm not saying talent-wise. I think Toronto is as talented as Tampa, but Tampa has that innate ability, that physicality. The physicality gap is there, and the Leafs tried to bridge that gap a little bit with Achari, and I think with Lafferty as well as McCabe today.
How do you measure the pushback? Blocks, hits? There's more to it than that.
Yes.
Right? And that's the thing. Toronto Baghead on Twitter. A lot of people hate this guy. He's causing shit, and you need somebody to stir it up a little bit. Tampa, Paul, Maroon, Perry, Jeannot.
Yeah.
The Leafs have a nice crew of players. They're just a bunch of good guys. They fit into slots, and the computer says, right? Look, Julian Breezeball might look like a complete maniac by giving up an entire draft cycle for a guy like Tanner Jeannot, but I'll tell you, that might not be a move that's solely born from his brain and his thought process. It could be coming from upstairs. It's like, look, guys, we got to get back to a Stanley Cup round, and we got to win this bloody thing, especially with the guys we got. We're not losing to that fucking team from Toronto. No way, no way, no how. And that's the thing, right? This
Tampa
seasoned enough to start taking leaps. Let's go. This isn't in 2027. Forget it. Keep losing. It's time to build it up. And this is why there's an arms race happening right now, and I'm fired up about it. I love it.
Breezeball recognized, and he did it with the Hagel deal last year, that since he's got that core group and they're young enough to contend for a Stanley Cup, that you just keep adding to that group. They're going to probably lose a guy like Killorn in free agency this year, but they don't, unless he agrees to take a cheaper deal. But I mean, they're just loaded for bear. So I think Toronto had to respond. I think they acquired Jeannot because Boston acquired Hathaway. They added Orlov in that deal. This is an arms race. You've got New Jersey getting Timo Meier. You've got the Rangers getting Tarasenko and Patrick Kane. Now you have Boston, Tampa, and Toronto all upping the ante. And, I think right now, I like the moves that the Leafs have made. I just don't know again whether it's enough, and it will not. We won't know whether it'll be enough. We won't know whether it's going to be enough until they play Tampa in the first round. If they lose, it wasn't enough. If they win, it was. That's honestly, that's the final arbiter of it all. Is win, baby, just win.
So I'm not one to compound or jump on something someone says and have it metastasize into a whole idea or concept that really isn't based in reality. It's just, look, in the moment, this is what we're trying to accomplish. Carlo Koliakovo, Toronto radio, suggested that winning a first round would be a success for the Maple Leafs, even if they get bounced in round two. There's a lot to that, right? Because this team has zero playoff success. The last round it ever won was what, in 2004?
Yeah.
2004 against what, the Senators, and then
Senators, and then they lost to the Flyers.
Right. So again, some can look at it like, look, we just need to get over that first round hump, and then after that, even if we do lose, you can measure it as a successful season based on everything we've done. However, a lot of the Leafs contemporaries are thinking, rounds 1 through 4, and you'd never want to get ahead of yourself. But the thing about the Maple Leafs is, if you get through the first round, then all bets could be off. Maybe it's over that hump, and then that mental block, that stigma it withers away, and these guys can take off. And maybe they were built for rounds 2 through 3, and then potentially into the final go round. But they've got to get through Mount Tampa first. And again, that's why we're in the middle of an arms race. It's a beautiful thing. This is what it's all about.
Well, I've heard this comparison, and I think it's pretty accurate. And most of the people in the chat probably weren't even born when these three teams were competing in the Smythe division. But if you remember, Edmonton, when they won all their Stanley Cups in the 80s, Calgary, who got to a final in 86 and won in 89. And the third team in that division, which was overlooked, was Winnipeg. Winnipeg was a great team with Howard Chuck and Paul McLean and a few other players. And they could never get past either Calgary or Edmonton. They were up 3-1 against Edmonton in, I think, 89 or 90 and lost in 7 games. But that's the whole thing. It's like 3 great teams in the same division, and they would beat the crap out of each other. But one team couldn't get over. And right now, until the Leafs can get over Tampa, that is the reputation. I like I said, they've brought in winners. They brought in O'Reilly, who won a Conn Smythe. They brought in Achari, who got to a Stanley Cup final in 2019. Funny thing is,
and Matt Murray has 2 Stanley Cup championships to his name. He's got 2 Stanley Cup plaques and 2 Stanley Cup pieces of hardware that he can put on a heavyweight championship belt. He won it twice. So again, it's nice to bring these guys in, but you want to still bring them in not only with their pedigree and their experience, but still in a position where they can parlay what they've learned and what they've experienced into new experiences as contemporary as they need to be, as opposed to, somebody taking kind of a victory lap or being there just for morale purposes. That's not enough. So Kyle Dubas has done a nice job in doing that. And as you say, Michael, it'll all come down to the first game of the playoffs, and then beyond that and how far it goes. And it's crazy that, you can make all of these adjustments. You can spend all of this draft capital. You can bring people in who could get injured or could go all the way, and you just don't know.
No. Yeah, it's completely random. And if you think that the deal that they made today was to add playoff experience, Jake McCabe and Sam Lafferty have played a grand total of 1 playoff game. So, but that's not saying that they're good players. They've just been in situations in Buffalo and Pittsburgh and Chicago where those teams didn't make the playoffs. But they're good ads. Now, the question is now what does Kyle Dubas do now? Because he didn't close the door of them making another move. There is some question regarding Matt Murray and when he comes off LTIR sometime this week. whether he will activate him right away or whether they have to create space. And what they might do, and they might trade somebody off this roster to open up enough space, because they may have to go down to 20 players. Even then, it might not be enough. So
who would that be, Mike? Everybody wants it to be Alex Kerfoot.
yeah, it's not going to be Alex Kerr.
What about Justin Hall? Kerfoot and Hall, get rid of him.
Well, I would be dumbfounded if it's Kerfoot, because he's so liked and he's so valuable in terms of versatility. I think if they trade, like, I would love it to be Hall, but it's not going to be, because Keefe loves him. He loves the now they've added some size on the blue line with McCabe, so maybe he would be dispensable now, and you could recoup some draft picks with Hall because he's a right shot defenseman. I think it's going to be Engvall. I think Engvall, with them adding 3 forwards in these 2 deals, Achari, O'Reilly, and now Lafferty, that you might be able to get away with trading Engvall and maybe recouping a 3rd round pick or something like that, and clearing his salary, which is a little over $2 million. I think they may do that. They might still add something. They might still add another. Maybe Luke Shen is the target. Maybe they add an Austin Watson from Ottawa, who's a physical winger. And because honestly, I really believe this. If they don't have enough pushback, they will lose on that factor completely. If Tampa will run them out of the building with the guys that they have physically, they're not going to have Wayne Simmons and Kyle Clifford to play against that team. Their bottom 6 is Kampf and Kerfoot and Engvall.
Then, Mike, if this, we don't want this to devolve into a battle royale, but right. You want to get guys who can push back, not to start fights, but to push back against the bullshit that Tampa's going to bring. Yeah. So, but what you're saying is, if you get into a war that regresses to the trenches, the Leafs are fucked, right?
Well, no, it's going to go there because of the way that Tampa has built their team. So here's the scenario, okay? Nick Paul or Patrick Maroon takes a run at Austin Matthews. Who's going to respond? Michael Bunting? Because every time anybody like Konechny or I think Dylan Cousins in the Heritage Classic game last March, anytime Austin Matthews gets challenged, the only guy that comes to his aid is Michael Bunting. Because
why doesn't Austin Matthews throw an elbow into this dickhead's face? What is wrong with this guy? Like this?
No. You don't want your star player. You do not want your star players to get involved in that stuff. Now he can push through it, but he's not going to drop the gloves. And maybe
not for him to do that. Stand up for yourself. Like the smiling. What are you smiling at? Who are you? Because the problem is, Mike. Okay.
You don't want it. He's had wrist issues. You want him to.
Nobody's coming to his rescue. It's a disaster.
That's the reason they have to have players who push back.
Like who?
Well, that's what I'm saying. They have to. I think they still need to get a player or 2 that does it. I mean, McCabe is not a wilting flower. Achari is a guy who hits, and there is something to team toughness in terms of everybody sticking up for each other. But
that doesn't exist.
No, but I think in a playoff scenario it does. In the playoff scenario it does. But when you have guys who are proactive, like Jeannot, like Maroon, like Corey Perry, what Corey Perry's like. He played in London.
They've all won cups. They've been around the block. So the thing for those guys is that this is a personal thing at this point. They're not just padding up. Like they realize that the clock is ticking on their careers. They've won cups. They've been around the block. They don't have to do this, but they want to do this. These other cats with the Leafs, they have to do it. They have no choice, or they're going to lose jobs. Or they're going to lose face, and that's the thing. You look at the way these 2 teams are constructed, right? One team has the balls, one team has the pedigree, one team can skate like it's 6-7 feet tall. The Leafs have potentially pound for pound more skill than Tampa, but they just don't have that bravado until they're able to stand up to this Goliath and take them down, not through just pretty passing, pretty passing in systems. It's not going to work. They're going in to the pressure cooker. They're going into the battle zone. And, can they come out with just a couple of goals and Austin Matthews smiling and Nylander looking pretty? It's not going to happen. But these cats that wear the blue and white, the Maple Leafs blue and white, potentially have it in them, right? And, you can augment the team. You can accessorize the team, bring more guys in, McCabe, Lafferty, O'Reilly, maybe Shen, whoever, right? Callie Johansson's out there looking for a job.
Go Owsley.
The core of the group, Mike. It's the core of the group. It's the core of the group that's going to get it done. It's the core of the group that's going to save Dubas's job. It's the core of the group that's going to save the reputations. Mike, it really just comes down to them. And, between now and the rest of the 82 game schedule, what can these guys develop within that'll set them up for that a better chance of success against a team that's just waiting at the gate for them, right?
Well, here's an indication of what, and I keep going back to Jeannot, but I think it's definitely a factor. Luke Shen leads the NHL right now with 258 hits. Matt Martin, former Leaf, is second. Who's
Right.
number 4? Tanner Jeannot. Tanner Jeannot is number 4. The recently acquired Noel Acciari is 187 hits. He's 9th. Garnet Hathaway, who was just added by the Bruins, is 8th. If you don't think that that's a factor in the playoffs, you're clueless. It is. And when it comes down to it, you need these players who are just bastards, who run people against the wall, who play physical hockey. That's how you win. Pretty stuff works sometimes, but you need guys who get and muck in the corners and do the work along the boards. And do you want a scenario like 2018 where in Game 7, Zdeno Chara punches John Tavares and nobody knows about it and nobody does anything about it? That's what you need. You need pushback. And if you don't have it, you're going to get run out of the rink.
OG's Converse, thanks for being with us. 150 people in the chat right now. We will go to podcast in the next day or so. You can listen to us on the podcast platform of your choice. Make sure to subscribe to this channel. Most of our viewers, most of our participants don't subscribe. Why? Because you're holding your dear subscription to your heart, and we're just not worth it when you're back every bloody week. Give me a break. Just hit the subscribe button. I do the same thing with, I'm on YouTube all the time, and there are situations where I'm watching, I have it come up on my timeline. The algorithm knows what I'm looking for, and I'll watch and I'll be, oh, okay. And I haven't subscribed. You know what I do? I subscribe to the channel because I'm watching it and I'm supporting it. No one's asking you for any money. So please do us a favor, subscribe, show us the love that you always tell us that we deserve. Mike, the point's been made by a couple of the OGs and the converts, and where is he here? As a Jason M. Well, William Nylander always shows up in the playoffs. So, for Jason, that's a Stanley Cup win because 88's showing up, right? That's not enough. All of these guys need to show up, and that's the thing. We can't be, Nylander did his part. He was nowhere to be found in 2019 when this team was up a goal after the first period of Game 7. He scored on his own net. So, like this, he's always shows up bullshit means nothing. You need Matthews, you need Marner, you need Tavares, you need Nylander, all of these guys to lead the way with vim, vigor, the ability to score, and that in-your-face, look, guys, we might be the underdogs, but we're coming at you. Nylander, he had a great playoff. That means shit. That means nothing. By the way, Nylander's not going to be a Leaf for life. Like, if you're a Nylanderite, the end of days for you and your fandom with this guy and this team, and I love him to death, is coming to an end because he's going to ask for big money and the Leafs aren't going to pay it. So this is kind of like a ride or die over the next little while for for this group and this team to kind of come together and forget about the individual performances. It's this team wins together or loses together, regardless of who does what individually. It's just not good enough. We got to stop this divisive way of thinking. One guy does well, the rest of the team doesn't. So, hey, he did his part. No, I don't think so. Not at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I'll say about the core group, and, at times Matthews has showed up, at times Marner has showed up, at times William Nylander, especially against Montreal, he was probably the best forward. But what we have to recognize is with all this talent, in 2019 in a game 7 against the Bruins, how many goals did they score? 1. How many goals did they score against Tampa in game 7 last year? 1.
Right.
You have to show up when it counts. And like, I think maybe all the pain and all the embarrassment that this team has gone through over the last 6 years will show this playoff. You have to have that hope as a Leaf fan that they learn something from all the pain and all this disappointment. And that's why it's important to have somebody who has won, like Ryan O'Reilly, somebody who has stepped up and been a Conn Smythe Trophy winner. And that, maybe that example, and he's still an effective player, shows the way to the core group. We'll see. Now they have 20 some odd games left. We have a few days left to go till the deadline. They have not, if you noticed, in all these trades, they didn't trade any of their prospects. They kept Topi Niemelä. They kept Matthew Nyes. Dubas went to Minnesota to watch Matthew Nyes play.
Right.
I'm going out on a limb and saying Matthew Nyes will be signed the day after the end of his season with Minnesota, and he probably gets in the lineup and probably plays a game or two before the end.
He's on the taxi squad for the playoffs, right?
Yeah, probably. But you never know. It's like, if injuries happen, if they think that he can handle it, maybe he steps in eventually. But I don't think, with all the depth they have at forward, I don't think it's necessary to force him into the lineup. They have a lot of experience, and it's a luxury that they have, that they can, see what he is and then go from there. But what we'll see over the last 20 some odd games is Kyle Dubas maybe adding one more piece, and then Sheldon Keefe piecing together a lineup that it gets ready for Tampa in mid-April.
So let me just go through some of the OGs in conference. Jason M. Norm is fired up. I like it. I'm fired up because this is Christmas for content. We're days away from another trade deadline. This is big because people watch. People are involved. So while I have your attention, subscribe to the Leafs Convo. We're 5 years in, literally, almost 15 years now, Mike, going back to 2009 to the AM 980 days, the Hook. You and I catching up, just lamenting the Paul Maurice days and the.
I found an old CD that had episodes of. Yeah, no, I burned it on a CD-ROM. Episodes of The Hook. I have to put them on a website someday. That'll be great.
They're out there somewhere, guys. If you can find one, send it to me. A few OGs and converts every couple of months will send me some old audio. It's beautiful. We had such a good time. And again, I'm super fired up. This is great. I just love to be with everybody as much as I possibly can, but we have lives. So RJWI, Norman Mike, could you at least be somewhat positive? These tend to be very negative, you and I. I'm a realist, but we don't need to sit here talking about Tampa's lineup. Let's talk about the Leafs D lineup. Okay. Mike, I'm just going to go put on my jersey and, I'm going to quickly paint my face blue. And we can just, can we just talk about how hot Austin Matthews is? Like,
okay,
I'm kidding, and I appreciate you being here, but look at us. We're scraggly old bastards. Okay, I'm not 22 with the jersey on, juiced up because Pierre Engvall got an assist in the third period. Look where we are. Yeah. Too much disappointment, but we are positive people because we continue to run a damn podcast that revolves around this beloved team that drives us crazy so much. And we are positive. We're excited. That's why we're here. But we're also realistic, as you said. Let's be realistic, RJWI. Thanks for being here, by the way. I hope you subscribed.
Well, I'll just say this because he asked what their defensive lineup will be. I think when the playoffs roll around, you will see Morgan Rielly playing with TJ Brody. You will see Jake McCabe probably playing with Timothy Liljegren. Mm-hmm. And then your bottom pairing will be probably Giordano and Justin Hall. I would prefer that they not play Justin Hall and then play Sandin or Timmins over Justin Hall, but they won't because, Sheldon Keefe likes Justin Hall. But that's what I think it'll be. I mean, if they add another defenseman, then if they add a
A
Shen,
lot of bodies. That's a lot. Like again, you want the more the merrier. It's a problem a lot of coaches would like to have, and you should have if you're going into what you're planning to be a protracted playoff run. But that's a lot of guys who are guys with some stuff, but no severe, serious, big time impact players, right? Nobody's
Mhm.
going to come in and just turn the lineup and turn the process on its head for the better. It's just okay. Well, it's Timmins. Well, it's Shen. Well, it's McCabe. Well, it's Hall. Like they're all guys who could do some nice things in a situation, but you're not
Well,
dropping somebody in the prime of a Norris Trophy kind of season, right? It's just more of the same kind of, but a little bit better than what we've had. So that's exciting, but it's rudimentary, Mike.
yeah, well, I mean, the one thing in terms of the mix on the blue line is if you're playing a Timmins or you're playing a Sandin, they're pretty much, offensive players, good passers. Their issues are in their own zone. They're young. Timmins is 24, I think. Sandin is 22, so they're still young. But we're talking about the here and the now. That's why if you do add a Shen, then that gives you an experience of a guy who's won a couple Stanley Cups. He's not going to play 20 minutes, but when you're killing penalties and he's a big body and he hits people and he clears people, that's a necessary thing that that you need. Now here's the opposite end of the spectrum. What if Tampa Bay gets Luke Shen? So he's depth, but he's another in a long line of these physical players. That's why, and not to say the Leafs make a trade just to keep him away from Tampa, because
This wouldn't be an AL East move, to mitigate.
yeah.
Opponent.
Do the Blue Jays want Frankie Montas right now? They can have him. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, Mike, I can't wait till the Jays win the AL East. That's just going to be unbelievable.
In 2046?
Oh, stop. I mean, divine right. Talk about being a fat cat. You wear the pinstripes. Who are you, Billy Martin, for God's sakes? Like, calm your shit.
No, I'm not dead in a ditch.
And you're hired. What a disaster those days were. I said that we would get to the comments and community because I put out the details on our show tonight, and I'm like, jump in, guys. You'll be the first to know about it. You'll be the first that we acknowledge. And just like most shows, I forget about.
Let me just answer a couple things quick in the chat here. Brad Tyndall had Mike, McCabe well. Can he play the right in the playoffs? He's never been in the playoffs. Left side or only right? No, he's a left shot defenseman. He was playing with Seth Jones.
Right.
So
he was not a guy brought in for his pedigree. He's a guy brought in for what he can do. They brought in some sage and wisdom in Ryan O'Reilly, and they have it in Matt Murray, and they also have it in Mr. Giordano. So I mean, not everybody can have gone through these long, illustrious playoff runs.
And I saw some comments about Matt Murray and should they go after a goaltender. Matt Murray is with the team. He is going to come off LTIR at some point this week. Go. Yeah, so no James Reimer. It's going to, please, God forbid, James Reimer. But I think Joseph Wall is capable. But if it gets to that point, then if they lose both Samsonov and Murray to injury, then the season is over with. So just don't even.
They've got
right. I mean, I don't think that's the last thing on their agenda is to trade for a goaltender.
Jarvis _3436. It looks like you're new to the chat. Thanks for contributing. OG's converts, we jump on you a little bit, but we love you. Thank you so much for being here. You're either an OG, and if you're an OG, you're an OG, or if you're Brad Tyndall, who has been anointed an OG. We did a whole Star Wars kind of ceremony for him and Chewie and R2D2 down the red carpet with all of the members of the rebellion watching as he came down, and we gave him his big OG gold gold medal. it was a big deal. It was me, and it was just really me and
You
him.
and Jabba the Hutt.
It was Jeff and I was there too. Oh my God, I'm getting messages from clients telling me they're backing out of car deals and stuff. So that's always fun. But you guys coming aboard is amazing. So real quick, just in community, the Leafs Convo slash community on YouTube. Arish, I will be here watching live. He usually messages me and says, "Hey, did you guys do a show tonight?" Arish, Arun Rajakumar. There's a blast from the past lineups. Who's in? Who's out? Any more trades? It'll be interesting to see how Sheldon Keefe composes these lines, right? I mean, he's got lots of bodies at his disposal. There will be some odd men out. For me, it's a matter of who the fuck wants to be out there and who is ready to go to war. Like, that's it. Not just jump over the boards and I'll play my system. Like, who's ready to go? And that's the thing. You brought guys in to help make this team better. You need to play them. And then this leads to another question. Do you think the Leafs, as a group, are potentially a little too sensitive in that bringing aboard all of these new guys could disrupt the chemistry, or are we way past that?
No, I don't think so. And I think that consciously what the Leafs have done is add to the existing group and not subtract out a player. They assimilated O'Reilly and Achari into the group fairly quickly. Now they're adding McCabe, and they're adding Lafferty, and the only subtraction from the roster on any of those that played for the Leafs this year, I believe, is Joey Anderson. So in both of those deals, it's been adding on and not subtracting. Now they might subtract before the deadline for cap reasons, but I think that that was a conscious effort. They wanted to add to the group, and plus, you think about this: they added players. O'Reilly and McCabe played together in Buffalo, so they know each other, and they're probably friendly with each other. So that helps the assimilation even more when you have somebody that you know as part of a new situation. I think that helps getting these guys. And McCabe is going to be here for at least another 2 years because he signed for this year and 2 more years. So this is a long-term fix. And one of the things Dubas did as part of this deal is Chicago retained 50% of his salary. So he's only a $2 million defenseman. And that with the tightness of the cap with the Leafs going forward is going to be an important thing.
Well, the creative accounting is a part of any deal you do now. And you have capologists and personnel who are devoted to making sure that these deals squeeze in to the financial picture legally. So we can look at it and go, oh my God, that's wizards work. But all the teams have guys who can do that, and based on the parameters they're working within, these are things that have to happen. So it was certainly nice to see. Hey, here's a beauty right here from where are we? James G.
Oh.
How about this? Nice O'Reilly and Robertson on a third line in the playoffs. No, thank you. I'm not. Again, I'm being somewhat facetious, but no, like that's not what I would not be banking on. Like my third line, I don't want that to be an afterthought, and I also don't want that to be, some kind of, temporary, just a throw it into the mix kind of thing where we haven't seen it develop and we haven't seen it actually produce, right? It's not just something that we're going to look at and say, hey, this works, this doesn't. And again, the third line is integral. That's why they brought Ryan O'Reilly in, Mike. And you've even suggested that once this team lines up against Tampa, whether in Toronto or in Florida for game 1, Ryan O'Reilly will center a third line. And I hope the 2 guys flanking him are ready to fucking go. It's not Nyes, who's played 5 games in the NHL, and Robertson, who, he scored a goal 5 months ago. You need dudes who are ready to go and not necessarily there to score goals, but be opportunistic, but also be a shutdown in their philosophy and their mentality. That is their modus operandi. You get out on and you shut down your opposition, and you mitigate the amount of offense coming your way, support your defense, support your goaltender. You just can't do that while you're just trial running a guy who's never been in the league before, and a kid who still has ways to go before you can really trust his abilities.
Last thing here, the Leafs just tweeted out about an hour ago. And this is always, you're always interested in what numbers these players are going to wear. Lafferty is taking Joey Anderson's number 28.
Okay.
Jake McCabe is wearing number 2. Okay. So he took Luke Schen's number, so maybe that means Luke Schen's not coming.
Michael, here's the question that is on everyone's mind, and from the moment the trade was announced to these very minutes that you and I and the OGs and converts are sharing, within this realm, Jake McCabe, Brian McCabe. How
about? Two completely different defensemen. Jake McCabe actually, I think, knows what to do in his own zone. Brian McCabe, he did well in the other run zone, in the offensive zone. Defensively, nah, not very good.
If it wasn't for Thomas Kaberla, Brian McCabe wouldn't be who he was in that time. And good old McClutz in Buffalo. So OG's covers, you wonder why Mike and I are, there's an acidic quality to our relationship with this team. It's because of guys like Brian McCabe. Look him up. Seriously.
Yeah.
Look him up. We should probably get out of here, but I am going to roll call the rest of the dudes in community. Jamaru Joestar, time to move Hall for Schenn. Wishful thinking.
Yeah.
Wishful. If we could do it, Hall for Schenn, is that a deal? Or do you think Hall, despite all of his inadequacies, is still worth more than what you could get in just a dude who's your 7th or 8th defenseman?
I would do it, but they're not going to do that.
Oh, geez. Habs for Rob. I don't wear pants after 7 p.m. Are you okay with that? No.
As long as I'm not in the room, that's fine.
Eugenate 13. Will the parade go down Yonge Street or across Lakeshore Boulevard?
No, there's too much construction on Lakeshore Boulevard, so sorry.
J. Paul Turner. Brian McCabe also got 52 stitches to the eye, guys. Yeah. So Matt Sundin took it. Boreas Salmi took it. Guys take it all the time. And the thing is, Brian McCabe was a pretty damn good defenseman.
Yeah, no. I mean, he was an all-star.
That's the thing, too, right? He's a bit of a throwback. If you could bottle up his energy and his intensity, I mean, he'd toss him. Remember when he had that big, heavy death metal bassist hair that went down to his past his shoulder? Remember those days with the Islanders? And he was just wild. And then
do you remember
early 2000s cut?
Do you remember his signature defensive move? It was called the can opener. He stuck the stick between the player's legs, and they tripped themselves, and then they made that illegal, and that was what exposed him as a defensive liability. He was not a great defensive defenseman. He was a very good offensive defenseman.
Right. Okay, Mike. Leafs win in Seattle 5-1. Sheldon Keefe puts Marner on the first line with Matthews, and what happens? Austin Matthews scores 2. Marner gets 2 points. Him and Nylander tops on the team, I think 73 points apiece, which is amazing for number 88, what we'd expect out of Marner. But most importantly, number 34, 2 goals. He needed them bad just for himself. And, how much do we attribute Mitch Marner to that happening?
Marner is the spark plug. If Tavares is struggling, then they put Marner on that line. If Matthews is struggling, they put him on that line. So I think he's going to go back and forth, and Nylander is going to go back and forth. They seem to be interchangeable, and they're all on that power play, so they can all play on the same line with each other. So I think it was. Matthews struggled after coming back from the knee injury. He had a goal in the first game, but I think he went 4 games without a goal. They needed him to get off the schneid, and now they have. And now they go in on Wednesday against Edmonton, and then back-to-back Edmonton and Calgary. So that'll be a nice baptism for the newest Leafs playing Connor McDavid.
So if the Leafs are as good as they appear to be, at least from the what you see in the standings, and from a talent perspective, weighted against the rest of the league, they're up top 10%. You know, um, having the new guys come aboard, O'Reilly still integrating his services and getting better. Um, are we looking now between the this point and the end of the season as get the job done to the degree where you finish ahead of Tampa to give yourself home ice, or are you kind of looking at it like, geez, it's going to be a crapshoot either way. That extra game, whether at home or away, not really going to make the difference. It's how this team sets itself up and the mindset it develops, leading into the first game of the playoffs. Last word to you, Michael.
Leafs had home ice advantage against Tampa last year and won 2-2.
Right.
That's how much it means. They won Game 7 in Toronto. It's how you play. It's not where you play. Would you prefer that the game be in Toronto? Sure. Does that put more pressure on Toronto? Yes. Tampa has won 2 Stanley Cups and played in 3 consecutive finals. They don't get intimidated. You have to beat them, and like I said, we'll see if they can do that in a couple months.
Yeah, I just don't think it's going to be talent alone. I think it's going to be a lot of intangibles. It's going to be toughness, and perhaps the Leafs have that ability deep down inside them, but you know, we've seen failure year in and year out. What's different in what we see right now that leads us to believe that failure is about to end for this team and there's something special on the horizon. On the flip side, why not? Right? Why not? It'll be interesting to see Marner's placement, right? He's just kind of a guy. He's the kingmaker. He goes in and makes guys better. But when it, really, really counts and Sheldon Keefe has to, pencil in a lineup that he believes is going to catapult his team to where it needs to go. Where does number 16 slot in? Is he really a fucking second line guy because he's got to make sure that Tavares is sustained? Or do they go all in with, 34 having 16 flank them? That'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. Best of luck to the new guys. And, I'm hoping just for the sake of entertainment that there is another deal to be had, Mike. But, man, that's just going to add, another body for Sheldon Keefe to consider. And, do you want that carousel, right? Do you want that many guys to have to choose from? At least we're not the ones having to make those decisions, but it'll be fun to watch. Like the content, guys. Subscribe to the channel. Don't forget we have the podcast version of this content coming within the next 24 to 36 hours. We'll get it up and live. Subscribe to your favorite podcast platform. Support us because we certainly support you. We do this not to look at ourselves. We have other things going on in our lives. Mike is certainly one of the top blogger, digital creators who follow the Maple Leafs out there, bar none. You all know that. And I'm just a local TV has-been who's just hanging on for dear life. So essentially, we just do this because we know you guys absolutely love it, and the culture that we've helped to foster is pretty damn strong. Even though we are diminutive and small, we keep pushing on. So, Mike, anything else you want to add, or is that it? Okay.
That's it.
So we'll potentially reconvene before Friday if another deal comes down. But if not, where we'll be Sunday morning right here. Be there or be square. For Mike, I'm Norm. Thanks for joining us, guys.